Escherichia coli, or E. coli, is a large and diverse group of bacteria. It is a common and ordinarily harmless bacteria in the feces of humans and livestock. While most strains of E. coli are harmless, others can make you sick. Some kinds of E. coli cause disease by making a toxin called Shiga toxin. The bacteria that make these toxins are called Shiga toxin-producing E. coli, or STEC for short. You might also hear them called BTEC or EHEC. These all refer generally to the same group of bacteria. STEC lives in the guts of ruminant animals, including cattle, goats, sheep, deer, and elk. The major source for human illnesses is cattle. STEC that cause human illness generally do not make animals sick. Other kinds of animals, including pigs and birds, sometimes pick up STEC from the environment and may spread it. Infections start when you swallow STEC. In other words, when you get tiny, usually invisible amounts of human or animal feces in your mouth. Unfortunately, this happens more often than we would like to think about. Exposures that result in illness include the consumption of contaminated food, consumption of unpasteurized milk, consumption of water that has not been disinfected, contact with cattle, or contact with the feces of infected people. Most of what we know about STEC comes from outbreak investigations and studies of E. coli O157 infection, which was first identified as a pathogen in 1982. E. coli O157H7, often shortened to E. coli O157 or even just O157, is the most commonly identified STEC in North America. When you hear news reports about outbreaks of E. coli infections, they are usually talking about E. coli O157. Some foods are considered to carry such a high risk of infection with E. coli that health officials recommend that people avoid them completely. These foods include unpasteurized milk, unpasteurized apple cider, and soft cheeses made from unpasteurized milk. People have also gotten infected with E. coli by swallowing lake water while swimming, touching the environment in petting zoos and other animal exhibits, and by eating food prepared by people who did not wash their hands well after using the toilet. According to the CDC, the dangerous E. coli strain O157 infects about 73,000 Americans a year and kills 61. In addition to E. coli O157, many other kinds of STEC cause disease. These other kinds are sometimes called non-O157 STEC. As a whole, the non-O157 serogroup is less likely to cause severe illness than O157. The non-O157 STEC are not nearly as well understood, partly because outbreaks due to them are rarely identified. However, some non-O157 STEC serogroups can cause the most severe manifestations of STEC illness. Because there are so many possible sources, most public health professionals can only guess where an E. coli infection came from. If your infection happens to be one of the 20% or so of cases that are part of a recognized outbreak, the health department might identify the source. Although E. coli bacteria can be passed from person to person through a variety of methods, most E. coli outbreaks are generally associated with undercooked meat. On September 29, 2006, health officials in several states who were investigating reports of STEC illnesses found that many ill persons had consumed the same brand of frozen ground beef patties. The USDA issued a recall of 21.7 million pounds of frozen ground beef patties. The STEC bacteria can also be found on sprouts or leafy vegetables such as spinach. In 2006, 3 people died and more than 200 fell ill from an outbreak that was traced back to packaged spinach grown in California. People of any age can become infected with STEC. Very young children and the elderly are more likely than others to develop severe illness and HUS, but even healthy older children and young adults can become seriously ill. The time between ingesting the STEC bacteria and feeling sick is called the incubation period. This period is usually 3 to 4 days after the exposure, but may be as short as 1 day or as long as 10 days. The symptoms of STEC infections vary for each person, but often